I'm Brian Horn, editor of Lawn and Landscape Magazine. Thank you for joining this webinar today on attracting and retaining employees who care with Bruce Wilson from Wilson 360. I will be hosting the webinar today and we'll be taking questions via the Zoom Q&A box. So if you're in front of a computer, you can type those in for Bruce and I'll be monitoring those and asking as we go along. A recording of this webinar will be sent to all registrants late this week or early next week. I also want to thank Service Autopilot for sponsoring this. You will hear from them after Bruce and I have our conversation. A little bit about Bruce. As founder of Bruce Wilson and Company, he has brought together many of the industry's most accomplished business owners, as well as the next generation of energized thought leaders. Bruce served for 3 decades as president of Valley Crest Landscape Maintenance and vice president of its parent corporation, Valley Crest Companies, which is now Brightview. He was also co-owner of the Palm Desert, California-based commercial landscape services company, Conserve Land Care. Bruce, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I think this webinar idea started, got your wheels burning here with a tagline you used to have at Environmental Care called People Who Care. Can you talk about that a little bit? What does that mean and why do you think that provided value to the company?
Yeah, well, let me go back a little bit before that to when it started. I joined the company in 1971. And when I joined the company, it was called Green Valley Landscaping. And it was started by a geologist from Standard Oil, Joe Marsh. And he had the philosophy in building a gardening company, which is what he wanted to do when he retired, of having it run and managed by horticultural professionals, people that had degrees in horticulture, agronomy, soil management, any technical science. Because as a geologist at Standard Oil, he worked with scientists all his life, and he believed scientists knew what they were doing, and some of us did. Um, so um, Joe's philosophy was to have these horticulturists run the company and do really good quality work. And when I interviewed with the company and interviewed with Joe, he told me about his philosophies and everything. And we went around and looked at jobs that they did in the Silicon Valley. It was in San Jose. And the Silicon Valley was just becoming the Silicon Valley with startups and Apple and Hewlett Packard and those kind of companies. And they were building big campuses. So we we got on the gravy train and grew with them. And in the meantime, Joe turned over a lot of the management to me as we grew and mentored me and taught me the importance of hiring the right people. And I think any culture that you want to build that is one that employees are going to be happy in has to have to be around people that they like and people that have shared interests. So we were a bunch of crazy horticulturists that love to grow plants and love to make things green and grow. And um, we we built a great management team. And Joe was a good mentor. When Joe retired, is when he decided to appoint me as president of the company became known as Environmental Care, the maintenance division of Valley Crest. And I became the president in 1979. And Joe had some peculiarities about him. He, number one, he never wanted to put our names on the trucks. And all our trucks were different colors. And he didn't care because he wanted to be incognito and didn't want to have to get business licenses in all the cities that we operated in. So sounds, uh, I don't know, kind of strange, but anyway, that's what he believed. We're a very profitable company, and not just because of that, but for a lot of other reasons. We worked hard and so on. So when I took over, I wanted to make the whole company under the brand Environmental Care. When Joe was hired, he had to when Joe was bought by Valley Crest, which was right about the time I was hired. I didn't know it was happening, but they wanted him to build a maintenance division. So Joe spent his time opening branches wherever there was a Valley Crest construction company. So by 79, we had 4 branches in the state of California. And I became president of that and started branding all the branches under the environmental care brand. And we painted our trucks jade green, Ford jade green, which if you're not familiar with that color, it's light green and it's very close to the truck color of the immigration trucks.
Okay.
So a lot of our competitors started to say, "Oh, you're the guy with the immigration green trucks." And anyway, we overcame that. Um, but at that time, we had hired a marketing company to help us uh, create the environmental care brand and environmental care logo. And I believed in involving employees in things that we did because I thought they had more buy-in, and they did have more buy-in, and that helps breed happy employees actually when they get to do stuff like that. So we started a logo contest, and a office manager from the Santa Ana office, Arlena Ruiz, came up with a logo of a hand with a leaf on it, and and with caring written underneath it. You know, we care about plants, and actually, you know, when we looked at that, it wasn't what was going to be the logo, but the graphic artist made a kind of a 3-fingered. I don't know if you can see my hand,
Mhm.
but and it had a leaf in it, and that became our logo, and it was kind of ECI, you know, very nice logo, and we came up with the phrase "people who care," and um, everybody really liked that because it was people who care about each other. We care about plants. We care about our customers. We care about the environment. It just worked, and everybody was enthusiastically embraced it, and that really became the foundation of how we built our culture.
How, you said you get buy-in, and what are some examples of things you did or someone could do now to get buy-in? You had said, taking feedback. What are some examples?
Well, just simply by involving people in making the logo and participating in, you know, creating the tagline that we were going to use. They got involved in that, and they were part of it, and it made them feel like they're part of the company. And then we did that on a lot of things. Um, you know, whenever we made changes to things we were doing in the company, we involved the employees and said, "What do you guys think we should do? You know, we've got this. We're thinking about this. What are your suggestions?" And asked them. And you know, they were especially helpful in getting our yards organized. You know,
Okay.
we as we started to build new facilities, we wanted to build the perfect facility, which is no such thing. But
Right.
we wanted input how to do that. So they came up with ideas like there has to be uh, 2 entrances, one to go in and one to go out, so that you can rotate through the yard and not have to back up our trailers, and you know, be able to park and line up, and then where we put dumpsters and where we put gas pumps was all input from the employees. So they felt like we were listening to them. We were trying to help them make their job easier and better. And any policies we came up with that or had to come up with because of regulations and stuff, we would run it by the employees and say, "Look, this is what we're dealing with. We have to, you know, we have to have a safety plan, and we have to have this, and we have to have that. What should it look like?" And the more we do that, the better buy-in you get. Actually, I'm on the board of Focal Point now, and Focal Point did some acquisitions, and John Muni, the owner, is really of the same belief. He likes to involve the employees. So when he went to this company we bought in Kansas City, he met with the employees and he had them draw up, uh, tell him what the perfect company would be. What would it look like?
Okay.
And actually, they described a lot of things that Focal Point was already doing. So it was easy for him to say, well, we've got that. And we had to reject having the swimming pool at the facility and a few
Six-figure
other
salary
things.
for everybody.
Yeah,
Right.
right. But it really got those employees involved, and they weren't afraid of it, and they jumped right on board. And they wanted the company to change the name right away to Focal Point because they like the Focal Point people. And so I think getting your employees to have a say and ask them what their opinion is really helps them to buy in.
And I know there's probably not a scientific answer to this, but how do you weigh all of that feedback? If you're getting this feedback from the employees, how are you processing it? How do you know the good from how do you know the better, best sort of feedback of what to use, what not to use?
It's kind of interesting. The employees seem, if somebody comes up with something that's too far out, that the other employees, kind of shut that down. And the it turns out that the employees have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. They know the company has only so much money to spend on things. It can get a little out of hand when the conversation just shifts to having a great big picnic instead of,
Right.
like, guys, all we want to do is wash the trucks.
Hmm.
Let's wash the trucks and we'll have a little barbecue and we don't have to have a picnic with families and balloons and stuff.
Right.
Um, but they get that. And the more that you involve them, it's just the more responsible they seem to become. They know that the company is basically responsible. They you can have conversations with them about, we can do what our customers are willing to pay for. Our customers are the people that actually pay your checks,
Right.
and they're only willing to pay so much. So we have to, be reasonable about it. And if you're in a dialogue with them, it doesn't sound like you're trying to put them off. You seriously consider it and you weigh it. And sometimes they come up with something that's a little far out, but once you analyze it a little bit, it's not that far out, and you
Right.
can do something like it, and kind of meet them halfway. And part of that is you have to meet them halfway. It can't be all one sided.
Right. What
Um,
if you aren't using someone's feedback, you can't meet them halfway. What advice would you have to a leader who maybe the person is insulted or they're hurt or you don't use their feedback a couple of times and therefore you stop getting feedback from them at all? How do you keep that process that person still coming back with feedback because they may have feedback that is good later on?
well, actually, some of the best feedback you get at Conserve, we had one of the people that was on our kind of core management team. His name was Juan Lopez. He was the only one that would really come up and bring up the sore points,
Okay.
but he did it in a constructive way. And, I encouraged that. Some of the other people thought, he was out of line and he was exaggerating. But, I kind of said, well, look, guys, where there's smoke, there's fire, and if we think that this is a potential problem, we need to address it. And we can't just sweep it under the table and say, you're making a mountain out of a molehill or something. And then I personally coached Juan on, please keep bringing these things up. And
Hmm.
as long as you bring them up constructively, it helps. Somebody's got to bring up the bad stuff because everything's not perfect around here. It never will be. And, if we have employees that are disgruntled for some reason, we need to address it.
Right.
And and then gradually the others came around to, being a little more balanced, and they would bring up some issues that they would know were bugging our employees, um, and then, I think the one of the best ways to manage that in a company is you got to make sure that you hire people that are a cultural fit. And that was first and foremost when we started Conserve. We looked for a certain kind of people, and we wanted people that had some technology skills, because we saw, the need to, if they're going to move up in the company, they've got to be able to do emails and got to be able to write letters and proposals and things like that. So we needed those kind of people, but we also needed people that cared about other people and cared about the environment. And in particular, one of the things we wanted to be as a company was the company that promoted sustainable landscaping in the desert. And Conserve was in the Coachella Valley, Palm Springs area. And that's basically a winter mecca for snowbirds. Um,
Okay.
People from all over the country have second homes in Palm Desert, and they come out there and they want green grass and beautiful flowers and all this stuff that doesn't natively grow in the desert. And so, as that Palm Springs area became a place, a destination, it built all the wrong stuff out there, and there's just not enough water to sustain it, and it was becoming a problem. And we hit it head on with our company, and then 2 years in, Jerry Brown, the governor of uh,
California.
California, um, declared war on turf and
Right.
um, gave $2 rebates to everybody that wanted to um,
Rip their lawns out.
rip their lawns out and put in a desert friendly landscape. And a bunch of opportunists came along and started, you know, taking advantage of that, getting their $2 and putting a bunch of gravel and a
Hmm.
few plants in, and it was ugly.
Right.
But we hired an architect and we did it right, and we prevailed. And the water district finally wouldn't give people the $2 rebate unless they had a landscape plan uh,
Hmm.
that they would approve, because it was getting a bad name, and
Right.
it was very emotional. Actually, I don't want to get off the subject with it, but the residents didn't want to give up their lawns.
Sure.
Just uh, but anyway, so part of the other thing of making this whole culture work is you have to have some systems within your company that you consistently follow. And one of them is you have to have promote from within culture, so that you're giving people that come to work the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunities that growth presents. And then they strive for that. And then number two, you have to have a train your replacement culture, so that these people, when the promotional opportunities come up, you actually have people that you can promote and not
Right.
leave a big hole. And then the third thing is a coaching and mentoring culture, where you're uh, training your replacement and coaching them to be better. And what we actually did was, we targeted people after, their first year with the company. They were targeted if they thought they were foreman potential, and then they would get some special training. And we started um, targeting people that were uh, supervisor or account manager or management potential. And we had a supervisor's course that Perron and Ambrose taught for, it was 2-day course. And then the second year, after they completed that, they would go into supervisor two, which was a second level supervisory and some more management training. And then the third year of training was on coaching and mentoring. And the coaching and mentoring was the one that was the most powerful because it got people to understand that a coaching mentoring relationship is something that's built. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
It's an agreement between a coach and a mentor is how I'm going to mentor you and how you want to be coached and how you don't want to be coached.
How did
Um,
you target the man after only a year? What did you look for in those people that you saw management potential?
well, we looked at the people that were successful that before we started formalizing it, what did those people have in common along the way? And we asked the management team that, you guys have progressed through it. Why were you successful? And why did you progress when other people didn't? And they told us, that we worked hard, we helped each other, you know, we we didn't stand around when people were loading trucks. We helped.
Right.
Those are all indications that people have the right behaviors, and you want to reinforce those behaviors, and it becomes part of your culture. And we talked about having purpose. That purpose-driven people that um, they do things intentionally. They we want their behaviors to be intentional and their work to be intentional, and we just reinforce those kind of principles to help them uh, improve, and they want to improve. And it's kind of along the way, we read a lot of books, management
Okay.
books, because like in the 80s when we started on this with me as president, people didn't talk about culture.
Sure.
It wasn't a thing yet. But when you started to read some of the management journals, they were starting to talk about culture, and they were starting to talk about cultural fit. And then a, a man named Peter Senge wrote a book called The Fifth Discipline,
Uh,
which was about building a learning organization. And it really captured my imagination when I read that. I was in jury duty. And in those days, jury duty was like a week. You sat in a room and waited to be called and selected for a jury. And as a businessman, you never get selected. So you just keep going back and forth. And so I had a lot of time to read. So I started reading this book, and it's a big book. But it caught my attention right away. And the concept was that the only lasting competitive advantage that a company has is to learn faster than your competition.
hmm.
And I just thought how true that was because we were one of the leading companies in the industry, and everybody copied what we did. We got uniforms, they got uniforms. We got shiny trucks and clean trucks and trailers, and they got trucks and trailers. And whatever mowers we buy, they would buy those mowers. And they just copied the stuff that we did. And so your advantage didn't last that long. Pretty soon we all looked alike,
Right.
and really became kind of commoditized because customer thought, well, they all got nice trucks, they
Right.
all got uniforms, they all use Hispanic labor, and it's the same.
Right.
So price is the differentiator. So
Hmm.
then we learned that we have to raise the customer's willingness to pay, and um, and just push ourselves that way. And that's where the employees uh, were very helpful because they're the ones dealing with the customers. And we asked them, what are they pushing back on? Why do you think they're pushing back? What do they want? What can we do to satisfy what they're looking for? And we did some focus groups and things like that. Um, and then we surveyed our employees, surveyed our customers, and you got a lot from the surveys. If you listened. And it was a great, at least with customers, getting a bad survey was a great opportunity
Right.
for service recovery,
Hmm.
and to show them that you cared. And sometimes I felt it was better that we got that than a good
Hmm.
survey because, they really know we care. And
And they weren't canceling. They were just giving you a feedback on how you can be better. And those were probably paper surveys, weren't they?
They were in those days, yeah.
Yeah, sure. You
Uh,
you said you want purpose-driven people. In the interview process, how do you know that? Are there certain questions you can ask? You want these people who care and are driven, but how do you know that in the hiring process?
well, I think one, if you ask them what are the things that they care about in life, and the people that I was always looking for is people that had some entrepreneurial spirit. So I love the guys that are the students that said I want to own my own business.
Okay,
And a lot of our managers said, why do we want them? They're going to, we're going to train them and they're going to go start their own business.
right,
And I say, well, that's up to us. If we can make this job attractive enough, they don't have to go to somewhere else to start their own business. They can have their own branch, which would be their own business.
right.
And and that worked. We didn't lose very many people to go start their own business. Um, and and having a person that wants to start their own business, they want to grow, they um, they do the things that an entrepreneur would do to grow a business. They're thinking about getting new business, and you can just tell the way their mind works.
Right.
That they're thinking about that. They're they're not content with just a job, and so the purpose driven person, usually those people in an interview talked about the things that they did while they were in college or jobs they had during the summer. They had a there was a method to their madness. Like
Sure.
they looked for jobs that um, did certain things for them besides just give them spending money. And
Hmm.
they also seemed to be on like the part of the landscape club or maybe some head of their class or things like that. They
Sure.
they wanted to achieve something, make a statement, and they some of them, they built kind of their own curriculum, sort of like I did when I went to college. I started in landscape architecture and then realized I didn't like it, and I didn't like, they weren't teaching us practical things. They didn't learn enough about plants and things like that, which I thought we should. Architects just draw things, and then when they don't work out, they blame the contractor. But I didn't want to do that. I loved contracting. I worked for a tree service landscaper when I was going to college, and I loved that part of it. So I shifted my degree, and then I started to take some business classes in business college and contract law and labor law and things like that that you could take as electives. So
Hmm.
I looked for people that did stuff like that, didn't just take the easy classes and
Cookie cutter landscaping classes.
yeah,
Plus, I mean, if they are successful at your company, they don't have all the headaches of owning their own company, but they still have the independence
yeah,
and backing.
right. Well, they don't all realize that, but the interesting part about it is for a lot of uh, people, we were their first industry job, and they would come to work for us, and after a while, they had this illusion that we were this perfect company.
Hmm.
Well, nobody's a perfect company,
Right.
and we all have warts. And so they would see things that they didn't like and then think that we were screwed up. So they would get disgruntled and leave, some of them. An amazing number of them came back when they went somewhere else and
Right.
found out what screwed up really was.
Hmm.
They
How many of them do you take back though?
if as long as they leave um, what I would call appropriately, they don't badmouth you. They don't
Right.
try to take employees. They don't try to take work with them. They give you notice,
Hmm.
and then when you do an exit interview and you ask them for feedback, they give you constructive feedback, and
Yeah.
you learn, really how you could have handled them better. And The biggest thing, we made people start in the field. Where not all landscapers do. They hire some of them as vice presidents and so on.
Right.
But um, we thought that you got to work in the field because you're going to be managing workers. You got to work with them for a while so you know how they think and how it feels to be a worker. You know,
Right.
um, if you're put on a job where all day you're weeding, how does that feel?
Yeah.
You got to know how that feels so you don't do it to somebody else.
Sure.
And you rotate those jobs around and understand what their their concerns are in life. They're a little different than yours if you've been to college, and you're looking at a future that is eventually going to be in management probably. And they're still going to be working in the field unless they can progress through the field in a company like ours, but it's slower.
Sure.
Um, and somewhat limited if their language skills are limited. But and frankly, some of the Hispanic labor they don't have any education. They can't
Right.
read or write any language, uh, so
Hmm.
they really are disadvantaged. And you have to understand that. And but they're good people. They work hard and they
Hmm.
care. They're also people who care. And
Sure.
they care a lot about their families back in Mexico, and they're working and
Hmm.
sending most of their money back there.
Right.
Uh, and when you understand how difficult their life is, you feel better about how hard they work.
Right.
And
We have
and
a
it,
couple questions I want to get these questions from the audience. Were the
sure.
supervisor courses internally created or outsourced?
Well, they were outsourced to Perona and Ambrose, but we had a lot of input into what we taught them. We approached those classes from the standpoint of what are the things that are people that have been managing, what are the things that they come up short with, and a lot of it is they're not organized. They don't write things down. It's basic stuff. They
Right.
don't manage their time very well. They overpromise, they underdeliver, they just put themselves in a bad spot sometimes. So
Right.
we teach them, you know pretty practical. Jim Perone was an amazing guy because he could talk to the lowest level of um, educated person in our company to the highest level, and
Hmm.
they were all the same. They
Right.
he just had a way with them, and he did all of the classes himself, and he was a big part of our company for 20 years. You he did our annual planning meeting, but if you find the right consultant, and he was really good on the coaching and mentoring part. That was a big part of their whole consulting practice. They called it Mentors 2000, I think. Uh, so
Okay. Well, let's pause here and we're going to hear from our sponsor. And then if you have questions, type those in for Bruce, and we'll get to them after this sponsor presentation. From Service Pilot, Brett Worden, originally from upstate New York and currently residing in Atlanta, brings over 15 years of expertise in sales and customer service to the table. With a career spanning at Service Autopilot by Explorer, Brett has been instrumental in assisting field services companies in achieving their goals. His extensive experience and deep understanding of client needs make him a sought-after authority in optimizing operational efficiency and driving business growth in the green industry. Brett, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Bruce and Brian. As it relates to what you guys were saying, one of the things that I wanted to touch on, not just about SA, who we are, what we do, but really want to talk about how do we as a software company help and enable lawn and landscape companies to have a culture that they're striving for. So one in which you have a happy, customer culture, customer-centric culture that will ultimately rub off not just from your employees, but into your customers to help you grow and be a successful business. Now, I know a lot of folks already know Service Autopilot and what we do, Obviously, we're a software company that was built by lawn care owners for lawn care owners. Been around for a number of years. We have over 4,000 business owners on our platform currently. We have a very robust platform, so we offer a number of features all the way from having the ability to optimize and schedule out your routing, enabling you to invoice, set up recurring payments, having client history at your fingertips, communication tools throughout your business so your business leaders and employees can effectively communicate, as well as with your customers. But really where we specialize and have a very robust feature set is in our ability to automate business processes. And I'll dive in a little bit more about what that means in a second. But one of the things that I think as you establish a culture like this, it isn't just a one day or one time thing that you instill. It's an ongoing process that you have to continue to work, invest, and commit to. We don't just service one type of business. We don't just service a one-man show that you're just starting, you got your first 50 customers, and you're looking to establish yourself and grow. And we don't just service companies that have been in business for a long time, have multiple locations, and do millions of dollars in revenue. One of the biggest things about Service Autopilot is our ability to help customers all the way from start to finish in their growth trajectory. So a new business scaling and growing, our software has the ability and packages to support that full life cycle. But a couple of things that I wanted to touch on and how we help with establishing a culture like this. The first thing I would say from any business that I've spoken to and over the years and even most recently, the hundreds of customers that sign up with us and start their journey with our software, it's the investment. It's the investment from leadership within every company, and it's the commitment that you have to make for it to be successful. So by investment, that's time and money spent into training, and it's time and money spent into how you're going to recognize. It's time and money spent into how you're going to give back to folks. It's that time and investment that you spend into your people to, one, get them confident, get them happy, get them operating with a sense of purpose, because ultimately that will just trickle down and rub into your customers, and it'll keep happy customers and keep them coming back. So how we do that through our software specifically is we help automate processes. There's countless hours and tedious tasks that your team's going to do, right? So whether it's setting up and optimizing routes and scheduling, whether it's coming up with estimates and following up on that, chasing down customers for payment and collecting, our system allows time and gives you time back in the day by setting up automations to accomplish just that, making the life easier of the employees that you have, giving them a sense of confidence in what they do and a sense of, hey, you know what? We're doing a great job here. I can focus on other items and be more value to the company. The second thing that I would say about investment, it's very easy to choose software in a sense of you're going to, give a few hours to maybe see a demo or review a website. It doesn't just take a few hours to get any new program actually instilled into your company. So an investment in training, how we help and what our investment is in our full depth of training offering to help businesses be successful. Our most highly rated reviews, a lot of our reviews, actually, if you go and take a look at them, one of the things that we put a lot of emphasis on and a lot of our support behind is our training offering and our support for businesses. So the moment that you sign up, our one-to-one trainings that we have that are specific to each role, so no matter where your position is in the company, we tailor to ensure that you feel comfortable and are fully knowledgeable in using the program. We also know that it doesn't stop the first time or the first month that you sign up with us. So we have ongoing training support by both regional events that we hold, monthly webinars to go over seasonal topics to ensure that you're ready for what is coming up for your business, as well as an ongoing customer success manager that will be there to help you see and utilize the software for the most return on investment that you're looking for. In addition to that, one of the things that you mentioned earlier that really resonated with me was creating a culture of coaching and mentoring. And the reason why that really stood out is, we have an academy program that we've had for a number of years where we establish a community of just that. Our customers have the ability to not just learn about the software, but it's a connection of like-minded individuals, certified advisors, folks that are hands down best in the business at knowing our software, in addition to coaching organizations and industry leaders on really thoughts and practices behind, how to hire, a better candidate or how to coach and develop management. So it really unlocks a lot of avenues and doors for our customers to take advantage of. So we continue to leverage those items to help every business that we work with be successful. You guys are going to see a QR code that's up there now. What I would encourage you to do as you kind of look at the investment you want to make into the company to establish this type of culture, and you're looking at tools and how do you support that, if you scan that QR code, you can book a free demo with one of our product specialists. One of the things that we do with every interaction that we have is we try to make it personable, right? So in these interactions, we will look at what the business goals that you are, what are the processes that you want to improve, and we'll show you exactly how to do that with our software. And the last thing that I'll mention before I hand it back off to you guys is for those that will be in attendance, we will be at the Lawn and Landscape Conference July 23rd to 25th here in Atlanta. What I would say is stop by our booth. Would love to talk to you about your business, service Autopilot, and what we can do to continue to not only help your business grow, but how do we impact that culture? How do we make your employees feel confident, empowered with the right tools to do their job effectively? So that being said, I'll hand it back over to you, Brian.
Thank you for the free plug. You took the words right out of my mouth. And Service Autopilot will be there. And we also have the Lawn and Landscape Business Builders Conference, May 22nd to the 23rd in Nashville. So in the follow-up emails, we will give links to both those events. Some questions for the audience. Bruce, that's a bit long. For a healthy company, how much overhead support is needed to retain and develop good employees? This company has 40 field/billable team members who are supported by 3 operation manager, 1 HR director, 2 mechanics, 0 project managers. Is this enough? Is this too much? What do you say, Bruce?
Could you just go over that?
Yep, 40 people total.
Right.
And then they have 3 ops managers, 1 HR director, and 2 mechanics.
It seems like that's about the right amount. Like a lot of a rule of thumb that some companies go by is that for each ops manager can manage about $1 million to $1.5 million book of business. And it kind of depends how good they are. And what I've always focused on is having good crew leaders. Because the better your crew leaders are, the less management they need.
Sure.
So, like I always tried to have, like if I could have I believed in the model where you have ops managers running production and account managers managing the customer experience and upselling enhancements. And then you had to add those 2 people together as cost. And so they would need to together manage $2 million worth of business.
Okay.
But good ops managers are good at training their crew leaders. And then once you get them trained, they can easily manage maybe 5 to 10 crews instead of 4 to 6
Okay.
crews.
Okay.
If some of your crew leaders don't need to be managed.
Um, Next question, when you see potential in an employee but struggle to get it out of the employee, how long do you give them? I'm assuming how long do you give them before you let them go?
Well, I mean, that's kind of a hard question without knowing the circumstances, but I think the tendency is to give them too long.
Right,
You
sure.
know that, and if you allow them to underperform for too long, then the other people that are performing get frustrated and say, "Why should I bust my butt if this guy's dragging us all down?"
Right.
And it becomes negative when you feel it's starting to affect the behavior of other people. Then you got to cut your losses.
When the noise gets loud enough, you sort of
Yep.
know it's time to let them go. Um, so this next question, how do you minimize over time without losing productivity? I don't know if I understand that question, but it just says, how did you minimize over time without losing productivity?
Well, I believe that um, you can't allow employees to just decide to work overtime. You have to. It has to be planned. You know,
Okay.
Planned overtime is usually pretty good. It can be more efficient because you got better people doing it than adding crews that are inexperienced.
Right.
But if you just let people work until they feel like coming in, they can stretch the day out to be 10 hours, 12 hours. An interesting thought that one of the owners I work with had was that he decided that um, of observing employees over the years that there is a time when they decide it's time to go home. And so the idea of starting your crews early in the morning didn't always work to the benefit because they
Right.
would work till they decided it's time to go home.
Hmm.
And if you started them later, time to go home came sooner.
Okay.
And so they didn't work as long. They just come 5:30 or 6, they're going to go home. So um, that I don't know. I don't know that that's the perfect solution, but better is you just have to have control over it and not let them work overtime unless they. Our policy was, if you're going to have to work overtime, you got to call your supervisor and get his approval
Hmm.
before noon that day, and
Okay.
and that way before noon, the supervisor could decide, well, go ahead and stay out, or I'll send another crew over to help you finish, or whatever.
Hmm.
But you're just not a victim. Don't let yourself be a victim of overtime. That employees just choosing to make the decision to work overtime, and then it turns out to be unproductive.
Well, then, like you said, you have to have a policy that you need
Yeah,
to know before noon. You have to let your supervisor know yes or no.
yeah.
Next question is, do you believe in revenue per man hour as a profit indicator for a maintenance division?
I don't, but some people do, and they think it's a good one. So I've just never thought that way. I've always looked at gross margins, and um, hard teaching old dog new tricks.
Right. Did something happen along your career that did you once think that way, or did something happen that made you not want to approach it that way?
I just learned, the way I was brought up in the environmental industries. Um, we were pretty good financial managers, and we managed by gross margins and gross margin percents and labor as a percentage of um, sales. Labor is the biggest cost, and you've got to manage labor, manage hours to budget. So I manage more hours to budget than
Okay.
revenue per hour, because revenue per hour is influenced by the amount of materials that's involved in the work you do.
Hmm.
That adds to the revenue, uh, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're more efficient. It just means you are earning more revenue per hour.
Yeah.
It's some people use, which is maybe a better thing, gross margin dollars per hour.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that is it for the questions. Bruce, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. Brett from Service Autopilot, thank you for sponsoring and for delivering your message. Like I said in the beginning, we will send out a link to this webinar late this week or early next week, and you can access it at any time on lawnandlandscape.com. Bruce, thanks for your time today.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for
And
attending.
thank everybody for attending.
Absolutely.